Hello and welcome to another episode of the series of conversation titled Minding the Business Mind. Conversations in we explore executive wellness and various facets of executive wellness with business leaders, HR leaders, consultants, and coach. In today's context, executive wellness is of paramount importance not only because of their personal well being under tremendous pressure that they are working with, but also because on them lie the responsibility of health and safety of their people as well as business continuity. In today's episode, I have with me Sudhir Saran Singh, who is fondly called as Sudhir by me because our relationship goes back to many years. And incidentally, now he is based out of Silicon Valley. Sudhir comes with illustrious 20 years of career in HR across several industries. And he's a global leader, he's a wellness expert, he's also an avid learner, a mesmeric public speaker, and whatnot. He happens to be an alumnus of IIT Roorkee, IIM Kolkata, and UC Berkeley, and is on the board of Silicon Valley HR Network. Sudhir believes this too shall pass, and while it does, just be. As far as I am concerned, I'm Indranil, a transformational coach, a bachelor therapist, and called as a human alchemist. A very hearty welcome to you, Sudhir. I think we are meeting after several years. We had fantastic stints of working together in different capacities with different organizations. And being together again, virtually though, makes me feel very good.
Thank you so much, Tara, and thank you for having me here. And indeed, it's a pleasure, as always, interacting with you, talking to you, and particularly today discussing this very relevant and important topic that you have picked up. So I'm really looking forward to this discussion, and hopefully it will be very joyful in addition to being very meaningful for us and for people who eventually also get to listen to this session.
Yeah, I'm sure about it. So, should we straight away get into the conversation? Are we set?
Sure, let's
Okay.
do it.
Yeah, great. So, Sudhir, I'm curious to understand from you and also more from you because you are in another geography and I'm in a very different geography. And though in today's context, geographies have vanished, uh, the virtuality has taken us over so much that there is no geography, and yet because of certain reasons, including cultural and other reasons, there are geographic differences. So, in that context, I would like to understand from you that given the challenges today, what is the life condition of the head honchos, the business head honchos out there, and what are some of the challenges they are confronting, and why?
Well, that's a great question, and when you talk about the honchos or the business leaders or the executives, irrespective of the geographical boundaries, the expectation has been, and to a certain extent, it is also true, given the kind of expectations that is from them around the world, is the requirement for mental toughness. So they have to constantly deal with the so-called VUCA world or VUCA world, which is full of volatility and it's uncertain, complex, ambiguous, and that's a standard, that's a constant, and to be able to deal with that on a consistent basis, there is of course certain amount of mental strength which is needed. So there has been certainly a lot of demand around that. However, what I'm also seeing now, given this new situation that has evolved because of the pandemic and the overall political situation that exists and prevails across the world and so on, there are a lot of curveballs that are being thrown on these leaders. So a lot of that is completely new. A lot of aspects that have come in because of the pandemic, for example, are absolutely, not seen in the past. Yes, you can always dig into history and go back to 1918 and see what people did when similar kind of situation happened. But then it was a different world. It was not so well connected. Technology wasn't there, and people were at a different plane altogether. Now it's completely different. So, having said that, I think one thing that is happening and they are realizing it is past experience alone and the fact that you have been successful doing certain things in the past in a certain way which guaranteed further success, that formula is not going to work. So, so on one hand, yes, they are kind of equipped, trained, or experienced to handle these kind of uncertain aspects. But as I said, this time it's completely new. It's completely different. Look at things like lockdowns, shelter in place, quarantines that are happening, and so on. Right. So running the business, supporting people, and managing other aspects around business and economics and people is a different ballgame altogether. So that is, I think, where I see executives currently, and they are trying to figure out things. They are trying to work out things and see how they can go from here. Where they can go from here.
Yeah, so that's quite a handful. I can understand from what you're saying. And that would have also, in certain ways, brought about certain disharmony in their personal lives. And I'm particularly interested to know, Sudhir, all the more because you are an HR leader. How do you think it is impacting their inner growth in terms of, I'm not talking of the physical or the metrical growth, I'm talking of the inner growth in terms of making themselves ready. You talked about mental robustness, some people call it resilience, but all that is, at the end of the day, it's all about the inner strength. So, with so much of juggling going on in the outside, and as you rightly said, there is no formula to follow for this juggling, with so much to learn on the fly and be able to still keep the ball in the air. uh, what is the impact on their inner growth? And if you have any examples, I'll be very happy to hear them from you.
Sure, no, absolutely. So first of all, this situation is just like a coin having two sides to it. So on one hand, there is a lot of stress and anxiety that has built up because of the level of uncertainty and level of complexity the situation has unleashed. Uh, on the other side of the same coin is a huge opportunity for leaders to really look inwards and see, how they can sustain themselves during this situation and going forward. And to be honest, this need was not as much there in the past. So they didn't really, didn't go there. So they were happy doing what they were doing. As I said earlier, doing more of the same got them better results. This is a time when, as I said, there is that vacuum, and that is kind of forcing them to look inwards. And as I said, that is bringing the entire focus on their mental health, on emotional well-being, and there are a lot of things that they are now focusing on. And I have been in touch with many of these executives, and that sheer sense of, on one hand, that stress and frustration that they don't have ready answers, but then that has also kind of opened them up to seeking help. So in past, like, seeking help was seen as a sign of weakness. So if an executive is reaching out for help, that means there is something wrong. uh, with the world saw it that way or not, but executives certainly saw it that way. So they thought that they have to be complete in themselves, and they should be able to deal with any kind of situations themselves. So this is a time when they are reaching out for help and expressing their vulnerability. They are expressing their frustration, and that has a very positive impact on their inner growth. So this is a time when, as I said, that you can't pour into a full glass, right? So this time the situation has emptied their glass a bit, and they're realizing that. The great thing is, the glass was always empty, but they never realized it. This is the first time when they themselves are realizing that over a period of time in this journey of their hierarchical growth and so on, uh, the focus on growing themselves from inside has not been there. And it was nobody's need, actually. If you look at their employers, if you look at if they are, self-employed, in that case, their investors, and so on, everybody was focused on results. What is happening to that, or what is happening to them is nobody's concern. And they themselves were so busy running on the treadmill that they didn't have time to really think about it. So great that this has come in as an opportunity, as I said. And coming to examples, as I said, there are many executives who have reached out to me, and I'm sure there are many who are reaching out to you as well, seeking help and expressing that frustration. And that ranks right from the CEOs of the company to CROs to other executives and so on. So everybody is really feeling the need to really work on their inner abilities, if you will.
Sudhir, that is very heartening to note. That's very heartening to note, and that kind of proves the point that every disruption in life has some meaning. It brings some message, it brings some opportunity, as you said, for us to work upon. But then very often we miss it. Very often we stay stuck with our old ways of doing things. But what I'm very happy to note that people are able to see, and maybe they are able to see because uh, there is this great push from inside to stay uh, intelligent. Okay, when I say quote unquote intelligent, I'm not talking about the normal intelligence. but the human intelligence. And what you seem to be talking about, and I would like to hear from you now, is if it is about awakening the human intelligence, uh, are you privy to any information? If you are, it's fine. Otherwise, also it is fine. As to what specifically are they doing to awaken this extra human intelligence, which can make me more responsive, more resilient, more adaptive, more evolving to this amazing scenario that we are all in. I'm going to say it is amazing because it aligns with the word opportunity that you talked about. So if you
No,
have,
absolutely.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
So
absolutely. It's amazing indeed, because this time there is no escape.
yeah,
So
yeah, exactly.
so people are experiencing things that were always around them, and they could knowingly or unknowingly, intentionally or unintentionally, escape from that. So,
Hmm.
like, family was always cherished, but how much time did an executive spend with the family has
Okay,
always
so
been
that's
a
one,
question,
yeah, right.
right? So now they are forced. All of us are in a situation where we are kind of contained in our homes, and uh, we are actually really spending time with our families and participating in things or activities which belong to the other, whether it was your spouse or whether it was your children or whoever, right? So, like, for example, household chores were, for example, the homemakers thing, studying was kids' responsibility, and so on. Now, there is that uh, true evolution of interdependence, if you will, in a family setup, right? Um so that has kind of brought in a lot of sensitivity. The standard or the traditional definition of work life and its boundaries, that's completely changed now, right? So people used to go to work, be at work, come back from work, and so on. Now, like, there's no going and coming, right? You are living and working at the same time, right? So it's kind of um, uh, 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 forcing people to experience uh, the real life, if you will, and not just
Yeah,
compartmentalized, unilateral, unidimensional kind of experience that one has. So that is one thing that is automatically happening. The second thing, which is again very good as compared to the past, is today, and I think I talked about it earlier as well, there is a lot more awareness and information about mental health and emotional well-being. These were kind of unheard of in case of normal people, uh, like few months or maybe few years ago. So if somebody is talking about mental health, that means that there's something wrong with the person. If somebody is talking about emotional well-being, it means that there's something wrong, and maybe it requires psychiatric help or things like that. Now, that is completely changed with medical professionals, coaches, counselors, and general media talking about the need for mental health and emotional well-being. And this is, as I said, no more seen as something wrong with the individual, but it is more of need to do well in life. So this is something that you must have if you want to you know lead a good life yourself and contribute positively to the world around you. So let's look at this question in the background of all this that is also happening at the same time, right? So when it comes to how I see a lot of us coping with these challenges, this new normal, and so on. I see people getting more focused on activities like yoga, meditation, I know, for example, of a CEO, I have talked to that person multiple times in the past, and um, told him about the benefits of meditation. And this person always said, "Oh, you know what? I just can't meditate. That's not for me. I have tried in the past, but it doesn't work for me." And now it's other way around, where this person reached out to me and say, "Hey, can you help me with this? I want to do it." And the person started doing it maybe for the first time. In the past, it was all like trying to escape that and not do it. But now, since there's intent, uh, there is result. Of course, the person is able to calm himself down, center himself, and be in a better situation. So I see a lot more um, effort that people are putting into these things. People are becoming more aware of the connect between the physical wellness and the mental wellness. So again, in the past, I've seen a lot of these executives going to gym regularly, doing a lot of exercise, staying physically fit. Uh, but now they are really connecting the dots between mental health, emotional well-being, and their physical health. So a lot of pre-existing conditions, for example, which got again highlighted because of the pandemic. People were just taking it for granted. So what if I have diabetes? So what if I have a minor coronary issue or a respiratory issue? So big deal, right? So I'm living with some medication now. With the coronavirus, the way it works, if you have those pre-existing thing, it is more deadly, it seems. So with that, people are looking at these aspects a lot deeper and finding uh, that there is a connect in how they feel emotionally, how well they are mentally, and then how it manifests in their physical self in terms of health and also in their surroundings. So, they are realizing now that if I'm not emotionally well, I cannot joyfully interact with the world around me, and I cannot, um, give them what they are expecting all the time. So these are some of the things that I am seeing them realizing and doing to enhance their mental health and well-being.
I think you brought out a very, very valuable point of the emotional state of being and the physical state of being interconnected. And I'm happy if people are realizing that, because in my therapy, the therapy that I practice is batch flower therapy. It's all about that, where physical illness is considered only to be a symptom. The real illness is in the emotional state of being. And being able to heal that will be able to heal not just the emotional state, mental, emotional, and physical state. So fantastic. Thank you so much, Sudhir. Now, my recommendation, or sorry, my uh, uh, request to you would be to uh, speak to the audience. And mind you, you have a global audience. And based on your learnings from what you have gathered out there, what would be some of the recommendations, keeping the current context in mind, keeping the challenges in mind, keeping the opportunities in mind? Because I'm particularly talking about the C suite audience. Uh, they have a very different environment to deal with, not just a professional environment, not a personal environment, but a very different soul environment to deal with. I suppose I'm able to communicate with you. And in that context, if you could spell out a few recommendations for them, it will be nice for them to draw insights from there and see what they can do to sustain their mental, emotional, and physical well being.
Certainly. And before I get there, though, let me step back a bit, rewind a bit, and um, maybe spend a minute or so on re-emphasizing this connect between the physical and the mental wellness or emotional wellness. And it's very interesting that what we, call as the the modern treatment, which is completely based on blocking the symptoms using certain chemicals, is being considered as the real thing, and other things which are connected to nature and how nature can help us heal are all referred to as alternate therapies nowadays. So it's like it's so strange how we have intentionally over a period of time even changed the way people think about it, right? So and there are a lot of good things out there in the nature, right? And if we can harmonize ourselves with that, it is good for us. Pumping in chemicals into our body just to block the symptoms is common sense will tell you that it is not making you healthy, right? But that seems to be the thing to do whenever we are in any kind of an issue. So I think that's a very important aspect that you brought, and I agree. And the other thing is in terms of awareness, even on forums like LinkedIn, which is normally generally used only for professional things, I see a lot of posts nowadays which are helping people understand how their emotions can impact their physical being. And one of those posts I, for example, saw which actually said, okay, if you are feeling fear, what could it lead to? And if you are feeling anger, what could it lead to? What organ will it impact, and so on. And there was a lot of curiosity around that. I could see a lot of comments around that. People wanted to know more. So good news is that everybody is realizing that these things are connected. Psychosomatic is a fact, so these two things are certainly working in tandem with each other, and we cannot ignore one and do well on the other. So with that, let me try and answer the question, and which is really a great question, because there's so much that one can do, and that's a long list of things that one can do to be emotionally well and mentally healthy. Um, and I can certainly go there, but before I go there, or if there is a need to go there, I think it is much easier to talk about things that one um, must not do. So,
Awesome, awesome.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
let's hear
So,
that. Yes.
right. So, first of all, when we talked about pumping in chemicals to block the symptoms, and at times it leads to using it at a level where it's completely abusive. So that is something that is not a solution, and we must not do. So substance abuse of any kind, whether it is uh, off-the-counter drugs, whether this prescriptive drugs, or even psychedelics. So that's
So
yeah.
yeah, yeah. So what you're suggesting is people should stay away from any psychotropic substance. It could be a medicine, or it could be a drug as in
Yeah. So
a chemical which is uh, abused. That's what you
absolutely. So
recommend.
right. So stay away could be conditional, because if it's a prescription, I'm not asking people to stay away from what doctor is prescribing. Certainly, you need to take that. But as I said, don't abuse it, right? So I have seen people, for example, they go to a doctor. Let's talk about that. For a certain symptom, they get a prescription, and next time when they have a similar symptom, they don't even go to a doctor, right? They just go to the
Yeah, yeah, I
right.
know.
Yeah, so it's not easy in the US to do that, but in India, for example, that's a practice. So any kind of abuse, is what I'm saying is not going to help. It's going to make the situation worse. And in some cases, we don't even know how it's going to impact, our mental health or emotional scenario. So, for example, somebody was talking about, some psychedelics the other day, saying that, somebody has tried it and it's working in their case. What do you suggest? Should I also try it? I'm also facing similar symptoms. I said, no, absolutely not, because that's not a solution. So it's better to get in touch with a counselor, with a coach, with somebody who can listen to you, hear you out, and, work with you to help you resolve the issue rather than just block it. Opioids, for example, they were kind of big discoveries some time ago, and now it has
Yeah.
led to such a big crisis because, so that's one thing. Substance, be very careful about what you are ingesting, what you are putting into your body, and what it does to your body is one thing, but what it does to your mental health and emotional well-being, that is something you won't even know in the moment. It will manifest over a period of time, and then it will be too late to come back and return from there.
And I'm told a lot of the damage is irreversible.
Yeah, it is indeed.
Yeah.
It is. Um, the other thing I would say not to do is just blindly follow others. So every individual, every human being is unique, and uh, the situation that one is facing emotionally are different than the other. So there are a lot of apps, for example, which have come up nowadays, which have, lot of guided meditation on variety of topics. Everybody seems to be downloading these apps. Some are free, some are paid, and so on. And just, blindly going into that, not realizing that, that may or may not work, and at times work against you. Because if that is,
Yeah. 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 I think I'm happy you pointed out that it might work against you, because I've seen cases where one of the apps has harmed somebody who's in teenage.
that's real. I can relate with that. And younger the audience is, the impact is much greater because they are so much more ductile and malleable, and it impacts a lot more in their case. So as I said, it's fine if you are like, not facing any issues and generally doing something, and you tried it once in a while. I would say, okay, fine, it's okay. You just wanted to relax and you picked up an app and you did some meditation, and that's it. But if you are really looking at your emotional well-being, I would certainly not recommend that. I would say, look at somebody who can really help you with that, help you diagnose the issue properly. And I'm not suggesting that you have to always go to a psychologist or psychiatrist. It could be just executive coach or somebody who is a career counselor or whoever. Like, it's not always a medical issue. That's what I'm trying to say. But find somebody who is knowledgeable enough, who has the experience of dealing with these kind of things, and talk it out. That's very, very important when it comes to mental health and emotional well-being. And the last thing that I would say not to do, and very strictly not to do, is not recognize the issue. So the challenge that I have seen with mental health and emotional well-being is, uh, when you are in the hole, it's very difficult to do something about it. And I have seen many people who are being told by people around them, they are being given feedback that their behavior has changed, they are more irritable, and so on. And since they're already in the hole, they find it difficult to even take that feedback. Forget about working on that or taking measures to come out of that. So don't wait for things to really go bad. So be proactive and make sure that this is something that's part of your regime on a regular basis. Just like you have food, and it's not like when only when I starve I will have it, that may be too late. So it's something that is needed on a regular basis and must become a part of regular life instead of an intervention when things go bad.
Sudhir, I'm so happy that the last point that you talked about, that you make it a part of your regular life. And, today only I was having a class with some of the students and I was talking to them about batch flower therapy. And batch flower therapy is best known for its preventive nature, and particularly in the West. I'm told that people are taking it on a regular basis as a part of their daily schedule because it's not medicine. It's floral remedies. It's from the nature. So they are making sure that some part of the nature is a part of their daily life, which is preventing them from getting into so many difficult situations mentally and emotionally. So awesome that you brought this up, and I'm very happy. So with that, I think I've come to the end of my inquisitiveness. If there is anything that you would like to add, please feel free. Else we'll catch up again over some other agenda, perhaps.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't believe your statement that you have come to an end of inquisitiveness. Maybe you have come to the end of the recording time that you had in mind for this interaction. But when it comes to your inquisitiveness, I haven't seen a person more inquisitive than you. So I always learn from you. And thank you so much for having me here today. And this was a wonderful discussion. And I only hope it will be helpful to anyone who gets to listen to this. And let me say this before I leave. For all the people who are going to listen to this, I know Indranil as a great coach, as a great accompanist, having not just one resource available to him. Uh, he has like huge experience helping people work through these kind of issues around mental health and emotional well-being, and has so many tools in his box, which is amazing. So what he will pull out, don't be very sure of that. Depending on what your issue is, what you go to him with, what will come out of the box. But I can certainly say this: you will come back with a lot of value added to you and a lot of clarity. So great work that you are doing in the Neil. I
Thank you,
really
Sudhir. Thank
appreciate
you.
you for that, and thank you so much for everything and for today's interaction. It was wonderful.
Thanks so much for the endorsement, Sudhir. It's very humbling, and I would love to continue to stay connected, and not just stay connected, look for an opportunity of once again working with you
We are
as
always
closely.
connected.
Yeah.
We are always connected.
Yes.
All right. Thank you so much.
Okay.
You have a good day.
You have a good day, and I think it's time for me to now hit the bed.
I know. Of course.
Bye
Bye bye.
bye. Good night.